Good afternoon if you're in India. My name is Shivangi Valke, and I'm the founder of ThriveMentoring.com. And I have been joined here by Sonja Robinson, a very good friend of mine, and also a Thrive mentor from the very pioneering batch of Thrive in December 2017. A very warm welcome to you, Sonja.
Thank you, and hello, everyone.
Hello, Sonja. So, as on LinkedIn, people are saying, "Oh, wow, this is cool. Shivangi and Sonja on the same frame will be fun."
Black and white.
Yes. But I've been looking forward to really speaking to you, Sonja. You have been involved in extreme, from the very beginning in conversations about Thrive and the growth of Thrive and the challenges with Thrive and everything. And we'd love to talk about that. But can you chart for our viewers a little bit of your journey? You are a successful, established executive coach. You have also managed the ICF chapter for Zurich for many years. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself professionally? What brought you to coaching, and how does your business as a coach, as a trainer facilitator, look today?
I try to be brief because everyone can look up my CV and Google, but just to be brief, I've always been working in the people's industry. I started in hotel management, and from hotel management, I went to consulting. I worked for FIFA for 7 years, which is sports marketing, still to do with people. And in 2007, I changed into the development space. What triggered at the time is that I realized there were a lot of personal issues with people, conflicts and insecurities, and I was being looked for to talk with them because I had good connections with senior management. And I felt this was so much more important than chasing licensing fees or anything financial. And so I embarked on a journey. I quit my job and I started my first coaching education, which at the time really was the second in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of my coaching journey. That's 10 years back now. And I didn't know whether I was going to be able to join a company because I started pretty much at scratch with a rucksack, but I started again from the bottom. And I joined Thrive Management because they offered me a space in the consulting area, which I wanted. But I never left my sales hat. So I continued a hybrid role pretty much all my life. And this has me brought to where I am today as a deputy for talent management. And again, that's a hybrid role. That's just to be very short in my introduction.
Great. And indeed a very, diverse experience that I think brings a unique, perspective that you bring from the sales side, and also from having worked in, organizations which are so diverse than the typical leadership development organization, right? How do you explain, Sonja, to people? I still get often asked the question, what is the difference between coaching and mentoring? What is your take on it, Sonja? Can you simplify that for us?
I have thought about that question many, many times, and I've been asked many, many times. And today I find it quite simple, actually, to distinguish. I say that in coaching, you are a catalyst. You're a catalyst, you provide a space, you provide confidentiality, and you help people to get from point A to point B. In mentoring, more often than not, it's a senior person within the same organization who has more experience and helps someone more junior to navigate through the organization, whether that's from a political or from a technical point of view, but someone who has almost like a little bit like a father or mother role within the organization. So it is quite distinct, and yet the two are quite often confused and mixed. There is no wrong and no right. But that's how I separate the two, or I try to explain the difference.
True. And as you can see, there are so many variations of that, right? Because we have managers as coaches, which a lot of organizations also have development programs on. Thrive itself has come up with a concept of saying you can actually have a mentor outside of your organization. And there are so many, and then of course there are organizational sponsors. So there are just so many, variations on that theme, that the rather simple definition, which you have so, nicely charted, then becomes quite confusing to understand, right? I mean, in my mind, I have said a coach probably will be the person who will help you to find your own answers. A mentor is probably going to be the person who can also give you some answers, who can help you problem solve, who can give you the benefit of their experience. So the mentors really have a little bit of, been there, done that. Whereas as a coach, you could be fairly new to that industry or even the function of the person, but through asking insightful questions, you can help them, find
Absolutely.
their own
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of progressing with that conversation, and especially focusing on coaching, I know that you have been an ICF chapter leader for Zurich for more than a decade, and you have also spent a lot of time on the European board of ICF. What do you see are the trends in the coaching industry? I mean, I want to go in that direction, but first, to understand, let's stick to coaching, which is your area of expertise. Why do you feel for emerging leaders, and if you can also speak about high potential women and women leaders in general, why are these things like coaching, like mentoring, why are they even important for them?
I think it's today we have a complete different way of looking at support, looking at people who give us advice. More here in the Western world, it's an individualistic world. So people are on their own, and it's considered good. It's considered you're independent, you're strong, you know what you want, and you're quite lonely at times. And as a manager, to maybe allow yourself to ask for support is not regarded as something professional. So it almost seems like the coach and mentor came up as a substitute for perhaps early days family member, uncle, aunts, teacher. I really believe it's a kind of substitute to the family that is no longer as large as it used to be. And the values in terms of receiving advice from family have changed, and also family are spread across the globe. So there is not always people nearby with whom you have established trust, and that you allow yourself to open up and be insecure about the way you work and live, and thus I think this has created a new, you could almost say, a family substitute role in some way.
Yeah. I think that is so true, and I think that coaching as a profession, as it establishes itself, Sonja, indeed, there was a little bit of a stigma attached to getting a coach in the beginning. I mean, I remembered, similar like you, my journey with executive coaching also started 10 years back, and it was given as a problem fixer. So if as a manager you had behavioral issues, that's when you would get a coach. And like you rightly said, from the sport coaching area, it came much more as something that is a must, right? And I think slowly, it's not all there, but slowly it's happening in business that having a coach means that your organization is investing in you. Having
Absolutely.
a coach that you are a high potential. A lot of leadership programs now come up with at least a package of 2 to 3 coaching hours with an executive coach. So slowly this is becoming more and more acceptable. And of course, the coaching industry has just blown out of proportion, hasn't it? I mean, literally every third practitioner I know today is a life coach. and I think the barriers to that profession are very low. And then you get this mix, right? I mean, of course, there are organizations like the ICF trying to create standards and regulations and all of these different kinds of certifications they offer you, etc. How is this industry being shaped in your view, Sonja? How is coaching as an industry developing? What is happening today, and what do you see is coming?
Well, as you rightly said, 10 years ago, hardly anyone knew exactly what it meant. And when I started my education on coaching, it was just kind of exotic. Um, and it was well established in the Anglo-Saxon countries. But here, honestly, people didn't take it very seriously. And obviously the question is like, what are you doing exactly? Which today I would say is different. Today it's an established profession. Still, many companies may use it from an edge of, well, something is not going right here, so let's try and get someone involved who can help. And that too is changing slowly. Every change takes time. And also with the coaches, certified coaches, it's been a huge boom, and you have thousands of coaches being certified. And what ICF is doing, just like EMCC and the Coaching Association and other smallers, is to really establish a professional standard certification to avoid coaches being unprofessional. Now, what is professional, what is not? And I think we are at a stage now that there is going to be a phase of segregation. So coaches who are really sincere and professional will stay in the business and they will continue developing. Coaches who have considered this as nice to have, as a little passion, as doing something different, gaining some pocket money, they will disappear. Because the client, and especially in corporations, and I see that at our organization, when you talk about coaching, they first want to know what certifications do people hold. Then it doesn't matter. Once you've entered the door, this is just your entry ticket. Then you've got to establish yourself. You've got to have a reputation. Employees got to talk about you and say, this is a really good coach. It really helped me to advance. But at the first level, it's a quality symbol. And if you don't have that quality symbol with bigger organizations, you have a hard time really being recognized. So I think it's really establishing a number of coaches who have experience, quality, who are dedicated, and who are true to themselves. Because the profession is not standardized. It's not like a doctor, where only when you are certified as a doctor, you have a credit in your hand. You can get a certification anywhere in the world, or you can even pay for one, and you could say, I'm a coach. But in the end, it's the client who's going to give you that credibility, because the client is going to decide whether you are valuable or not. And that will go around very quickly and leave its mark. So I think we've reached a peak. And I think now we're going to have this segregation piece starting. That is just my personal view, and also looking at ICF's development.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you two questions which might be of interest to two different segments of viewers that we have here. One segment is the corporate decision makers, so people who are in talent and leadership development roles, who are now making decisions around having a coaching pool, for instance, or working with organizations which offer coaching pools, right? Because there's many such organizations today who have sprung up who would say, we will manage your coaching. I mean, I remember when I was in role in my last organization, there was somebody who managed a coaching pool of 100 coaches globally for you. And they even, converted it into a sort of a leadership development initiative with very, well-defined metrics, right? So that's one target group, people who are trying to buy coaching services. What would be your advice to them when they are looking to bring a coach inside their organization? It doesn't need to be a large organization. You might be an organization with a couple of thousand people. You probably are in, 4 countries, and you want to establish a pool. What would your advice be to them? How should they go about it?
Well, firstly, I think you need to consider as a company why you would establish a coach pool. What are the reasons behind? And what is your objective with that? I mean, where do you want to get with paying coaches to support your managers? And secondly, depending, as you just mentioned, you're in 4 corners of the world. You've got to establish what do we need. I mean, if you're a local company, then maybe it can just be German-speaking coaches. But if you're a global company, you need a multilinguist coaching pool. Then you need to think about what are the requirements. Do we need coaches who are familiar with our industry, or do we want coaches who are very diverse? I mean, there's a lot of criteria you need to think about. And you then need to also consider, do I want to have a collection of coaches who are certified by coaching organizations such as the ICF or the EMCC or the Coaching Association? Now, these are all choices, but I think these are all.
Oh, I have no idea what happened, but suddenly Sonja has gone off the session. As she was mentioning, that we have the choices of these organizations like the EMCC, like the Coaching Association, and like the ICF, which certify coaches. And as decision makers in corporate, that's really the the decision we need to make. Who do we decide to go with? What are their philosophies, and how will they actually contribute to what you want? Sonia, you just disappeared for a moment, but you're back.
I'm back. Sorry.
Yes.
Second interview on the other side. Just kidding.
I was summarizing what you said because I knew you would come back momentarily. What about coaches? And, coming back to Thrive Mentors here, I know a lot of Thrive Mentors are coaches themselves, but a lot of them are also considering, coaching education. What would your recommendation be to those people who are considering an education? And, like you rightly said, probably not just as a nice to have, but probably a profession that they would like to, build over the years. What advice would you give them, Sonia?
I get these questions a lot from people who just call up and ask me exactly that. And I think you need to go into some mediation and ask yourself a lot of questions. You need to ask yourself, why do I want to do this? What do I want to achieve with this? Where do I want to act as a coach? And how do I want to be as a coach? In what area do I want to coach? Is it important to me that I have an official certification? Do I have so many years of experience that I just call myself a coach because I'm a senior VP? Do I want the organization who certifies me to be recognized locally, regionally, globally? And how is my business model going to be? Is this something I'm just going to do on the side because I don't need to make a living out of it? And if I need to make a living out of it, what is my business plan? How am I going to live from this? I know very few coaches who live just from coaching alone. Yeah. That may or may not change in the future, but it's more likely that you'll have different hats with your role on. So I think there's a lot of questions you need to first answer to yourself before you take the first step in doing a course. I think the selection of doing your first education in coaching is key. Yeah. Just in my example, I knew I wanted a globally recognized coaching body to certify me. I knew at the time I wanted to have the flexibility and freedom to coach anywhere in the world, and therefore I needed a global certification. That's not the case for everyone. Some people say, I'm going to stay here in Switzerland and I coach in German. That's it.
Yeah. So that's really the starting point of understanding, where it is that you would like to go, and, how is it that you're more. How are the business models in this particular industry changing? You probably have seen a few cycles of, how coaches are more or less successful in their businesses, right? You probably also know a couple of coaches who are, extremely successful and can make a living. Have you ever considered what makes some people, and maybe they are equally skilled, but as a business, it works for some and works less for others. If you were to think back of people with whom you have, or how their business works, what is differentiating them, Sonia?
I've seen a lot of very passionate people who became coaches or were aspiring to become a coach. Very passionate, lovely people, but they had no idea about business and they had no interest in selling themselves. They actually were scared of selling themselves. So that's one combination that is very challenging to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
The successful coaches that I've seen succeed is people who have an experience in business, who know how to sell their competences and their skills. So self-marketing, self-promotion is key. And if you cannot do that yourself, you better associate with a company who does a really good job in that. But ultimately, as a coach, you always sell yourself. Always. I mean, whether you're a coach or a mentor or a manager, you always have to sell yourself. So some people just struggle with that. So I would advise these people to look for someone who can help them in getting more confident with selling themselves, because no one else will do that for you the way you do it. So I would say the people that are successful, they have a business background and they know how to sell themselves and their business.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I've seen now that the time has really flown.
Already.
I always try to limit the FP lives, and they always become longer when the conversation is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Sonja, and thanks a lot for being a Thrive mentor, and bringing your skill set of coaching to be a mentor, which I think is a very great combination.
So just to close, maybe Shivangi, you asked me why I'm attracted to Thrive Mentoring. You didn't ask me that, but it was one of the questions.
I thought I would ask you that.
So maybe I just give you some hindsight to that. Throughout my life, and I believe we had the conversation before, I was learning mostly from people at a given moment in my career that were there and believed in me and my competences and skills. Without that, it's a very, very, very tough world. And I think everyone needs that every now and then. And I find it also extremely rich, a rich experience to learn from others, because me being a mentor could be the reverse. I become a mentee because there's many things that I learn from a mentee and vice versa. So just actually the curiosity to learn and to expand my know-how is key. And I guess also just, seeing how valuable it is to be supported and to support others.
Yeah, and that is so important, right? I mean, I remember the last time when we met in Zurich, and there were so many mentors. And then, when we did this small game of how can we support each other, there were so many connections that were formed, right? So one is the mentor-mentee relationship, but there were so many connections and also businesses that came out of being together. And as you rightly said, being vulnerable with each other, not always trying to show I'm, just so perfect and everything is working so well, which is unfortunately what is perceived, this hero or heroine metaphor that we see in organizations, that to be successful, you need to come across as being, having no issues or managing everything really very well. And I think that's what a mentoring relationship allows you, right? To actually talk about your fears, talk about what is not working, talk about what is being difficult for you, and your successes. I mean, it's recognition plus also being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. I think both of that really helps a lot.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Sonja.
Thank you.
Those of you who have joined now, I was talking with Sonja Robinson, who is a mentor with ThriveMentoring.com, global organization, which is in many cities, 10 cities in the world, and coming to many more in the coming days. And I really wish all of you here a very good afternoon or a very good day, depending on where you are. Thank you, Sonja, and we will reconnect soon.
For sure. Thank you, Shivangi, for the opportunity, and everyone else. I hope you're still awake, and if not, just listen to us again.
Well, we get your comment by Karina. Hi, Karina. Sorry, I've not actually shown all the comments because we were in the midst of a conversation, but there have been quite a few viewers.
That's okay. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.